Hello and welcome to sim.bc, where right now is 2034, and if you're not used to this kind of format, this is going to be the April podcast. That is correcto mundo, which basically means I'm going to deviate from my normal schedule where I usually, make a 10 to 20 minute video where I talk about stuff that I do like. But sometimes you find that particular topic that you just cannot squeeze it into under 20 minutes. It just doesn't work. And today's going to be one of those times because I've been watching a movie, probably the biggest movies of this decade, based on how the next one is going to work out as well, because that can potentially be the biggest one of the decade. And what am I talking about? Well, I'm of course talking about Marvel's latest installments, the Marvel Avengers Infinity War, that was originally made Avengers Infinity War Part 1, and I can kind of see why it was made Part 1 to begin with and why they definitely changed that. So I'm just going to fix the microphone a bit, change it in height here for those of you who don't know. Now, I could have edited that out, but hey, I'm going to make my life easier, right? And if this wasn't evidently clear from the title of this video, I'm going to say spoilers for this video, for this movie that we are going to discuss. And if that wasn't clear either, I'm going to say that I'm going to talk about some stuff that is happening in this movie. Probably going to theorize a bit, meet some critique that the movie has gotten so far, say what I thought about it, really get into spoilers, because there's just so many things that I want to do, or rather that I want to discuss, that's really hard to discuss without actually touching upon what is happening in the movie. I've tried to make a spoiler-free review, or I've tried to make it's the first movie review that I've ever done, and this is going to be like spoiler-free. This is going to be the first, spoiler-included review that I've ever done. So you can go and check that out on my channel as well if you want to have the spoiler-free experience. And if you don't have time for that, I can probably say that I can summarize it in 5 seconds. It's really good, and I totally recommend you go see it. That's probably my take on the movie in under 5 seconds, right? That it's really good. It has its strong moments. It's a good balance between funny and serious, and yeah, it just works. It just works. But that is not why you're here today, now is it? No. We're here to discuss all the spoilers, right? All the spoilers. We're going into the nitty-gritty of it. And I hope that all of you out there has probably left who don't want to hear this, right? And those of you who are left are either the people who have already watched the movie like I have, and want to watch it again because it was so good, or the people who are just wanting to destroy the movie for themselves. I'm going to say yet again, spoilers, and this is probably one of those movies where you don't want to have it spoiled. You want to go and you want to see it because, it is Luke, I'm your father level of significance and impact in this movie. I'd say that's based on my opinion. Like, if you've grown up on these movies, if you've grown up on the Marvel movies like I have, and you're like in your early 20s, mid 20s, something like that, this is incredible. And if you saw Iron Man when it first came out, it's an incredible journey that they've taken. But yeah, I've been rambling on for long enough without actually getting into spoilers. So here we go. The biggest question that most people probably had moving into this movie, including myself and my friends, was who's gonna die? Because it's called Infinity War, and let's be honest, if you read the comics, if you have any form of understanding about the story that it's inspired from, Infinity War, Gauntlet and Thanos Quest and all of that, you probably know that people are going to bite the dust in this movie. But the question was just how many, how are they going to do it, why not, and oh my god, it feels so weird to just talk about all the spoilers. Wow. But yeah, many people were thinking about how many were going to die. And I was sitting outside the movie and I was going through with my mates. And I don't know, what's the best way of explaining it? I was sitting there and I was thinking that, well, I've kind of seen it. I'm familiarized with the comics. I think it's gonna, you know, I think a couple of A-list Avengers gonna die. I for sure thought that Tony Stark would die, and some of my friends were saying, you know what? I think that they were gonna kill off Spider-Man because he's a shared, it's a shared character between them and Sony, and then they can have him in his Venomverse or Spider-Verse or whatever they're gonna call it that they're trying to develop. And more than that, probably not. Perhaps Captain America dies, because end of Secret Wars or whatever. Whatever that story was when he was killed in the end, or Civil War. But my days, wasn't it just going to be easier to describe how many didn't die after this movie? I mean, the way of this movie, man. Going into it, yet again, as I said, we were sitting there discussing, like, who do you think is going to die? And when we were going out, it was like, who survived? Who was actually left? I mean, I remember we were having this big discussion on, did Star-Lord actually die? Is any of the Guardians still there? And someone was like, yeah, Rocket, he was still there in the end. So, someone at least survived. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is confirmed being in the making. And I was like, well, they can throw in Thor there, right? I mean, it can be Thor and Rocket Raccoon, because it seems to have a really good dynamic in the film. Or at least I would say so. And, part of Groot is still alive in Thor's new handle. Wow. Speaking of Thor, by the way, going directly from Thor Ragnarok, and I've seen all of the MCU movies up until Black Panther. I actually haven't seen Black Panther, so you can say that before we go into the movies, or before continuing the discussion. But Thor Ragnarok, it's so funny. It's a big payoff moment in that movie, and spoilers for that movie if you haven't seen it. But in the end there, he is having a discussion with his father when he's knocked down and he's fighting with his sister Hela, the goddess of death, and his dad is telling him, Odin is telling him, well, are you the god of hammers or are you the god of thunder? And it's this big realization, right, that Thor has had the power within him all of this time, and he doesn't really need the hammer. It was just a way of channeling his power, because he has so much power. So it was just a way of controlling it. And then you move into this movie, and, well, the first 5 minutes of this movie is just, they don't give you any preposition at all. It's just, the Guardians of the the Asgardian ship at the end of Thor Ragnarok. There's where they begin. That shit's destroyed. I mean, it's crushed. It's really demolished. You can see that it's a big problem being on that ship at that moment. Hopefully it's getting a bit more of a hopeful twist later on when you kind of realize what Thanos is doing. But still, at that point, I was like, wow, this is dark. People are dead everywhere. There's bodies all around the floor. The ship is destroyed. The first thing you kind of see is the Ebony Maw walking up, one of the Black Order, walking over dead bodies, just preaching about how great Thanos is. You can see Heimdall is about to die. And then the, what's he called? Corvus Glaive, I think, the guy with the spear, is just walking over, sinking his spear into Heimdall. That Soulstone, that entire Soulstone theory is just gone out of the window, out of the blue, with the, with him just killing him straight off in the movie. And I was just turning my head to one of my friends, and I was like, how many did we say were gonna die again? Didn't you have this theory that nobody was gonna die because it's a kid movie, or it's a movie for kids? And, 30 seconds in or something like that, Heimdall dies. And then after that, we can see Thor getting absolutely destroyed by Thanos. It's implied that there's been a big battle before this entire battle scene, and Thanos already has the power gem from Sandor from the Nova Corp. So he's, presumably already kicked their ass and just made his way over to the Asgardian ship. And whilst there, he has the Power Stone, and he is completely pummels Thor. He really kind of torture him is the best way of describing it, really. It's unfortunate to say, but I thought it was great. I mean, they're really setting the tone here. Within the first 5 minutes of the film, they're really setting the tone about what this movie is going to be about. This is a Thanos movie. It's his heist film. He is going to go for the Infinity, for the entire Infinity Gauntlet. He's going to gather the Infinity Stones, and he is ruthless. He's going to go there. He's going to go the extra mile. He's going to write something down. I actually have notes for the podcast, which is not my style, really. I mean, sometimes I have an entire script, but yeah, Thanos motivation, we can say. And that we kind of, I felt for him. Yeah, that's good enough. I felt for him. Well, so you can see Thanos standing there with Thor's head in his hand. It's just torture him with the Power Stone, just like shoving it into his head and really using the power. And then telling Loki that I either kill your brother or you give me the Tesseract. You give me the Space Stone that's inside the Tesseract. And Thanos directly addresses like, give me the Space Stone because it's in the Tesseract. I already know that. And for someone who hasn't really seen Guardians of the Galaxy 1 perhaps, or haven't read the comics or not up to date, that might sound really strange because you're like, that's the Tesseract from the Avengers movie. I realize what that is. And I know he took it in the end of Thor Ragnarok, but that's the Tesseract, not the Space Stone, right? And Thanos just directly is like, nope, that's the Space Stone. Give me it, and he just crushes it when he gets it. But Loki's standing there, and Thanos is saying, you either give me the Tesseract, you either give me the Space Stone, or I crush your brother's head. And Loki's just like, you know what? Kill him. Let's just, get Thor out of the way. Just take him out. And in a split second, I really thought, wow, they're going to kill off one of the big three within the first 5 minutes of the movie. In the first 5 minutes of the film. And the big three being Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. That's really the big three A-list Avengers, I'd say. But wow, the sheer amount of just the silence in the movie theater. I mean, normally you hear people, they're eating chips, they've just got in, they still have a lot of all the snacks left. People are rolling around in bags and so with their hands and like, oh, this is nice, this is a nice movie. I really haven't really gotten into the feeling yet, and it was just completely dead silent. I mean, if I dropped a needle, people would hear that and be like, shh. Because in that moment, I think that everybody in the theater was like, wow, Thor might die here really early. But it doesn't end up like that. Loki's kind of giving him the Tesseract, and then he says like, we have a Hulk. Just the same as in, I think it's the first Avenger movie. They're saying something like, we have this and this, and Tony Stark is saying, yeah, we have a Hulk. Or if that's Avengers Age of Ultron, I can't really remember. But I remember that phrase being coined somewhere else as well. And it's just so good because the Hulk is attacking Thanos from nowhere, and the entire, the Black Order is like about to step in, and Ebony Maw is like, you know what, let him have his fun. And for a normal, just viewer, you would probably think like, who's fun? I mean, are they on the Hulk side? But it just turns out that Thanos completely crushes the Hulk. I mean, there's really no telling about the power. I mean, they really established rather Thanos' power in the beginning of the film. He has destroyed the Nova Corps. He has the Power Stone. He's destroyed the Asgardian ship. He's beaten Thor, and he's beating the Hulk. And you're just like, okay, wow, that's kind of his thing. Anyway, he beats the Hulk, shoves him, and Heimdall is shoving him away with his last breath or something. That's how he ends up on Earth. And then something is that, yeah, Loki is kind of coming in and saying like, oh, you probably need a guide because you know that there is Infinity Stones on Earth. And instead of telling Thanos that, instead of Thanos saying like, oh yeah, we probably need a guide to that planet, they're really establishing how Thanos handles, not succeeding, how he is handling failure, because he completely addresses Loki that, well, you've been there already. I kind of sent you there. I was the one behind sending you there, or at least that's implied. And he was like, yeah, you have experience, but it's still failure that is your experience. And Loki's like, yeah, but it's still experience, right? And Thanos just kills him right there, straight off. And he's not just a clean kill either. He's grabbing him with the Infinity Gauntlet around the neck, picks him up, and just lets him. Oh, it's so brutal. He just, he just strangles him in front of Thor. And Thor is completely destroyed. And then it kind of cuts away from that, I think. Yeah, as I remember, it cuts away from that and we're back on Earth. And it just directly jumps to Banner crashing into Doctor Strange's sanctum from Doctor Strange. Well, yeah, that was a lot of Doctor and a lot of Strange in that sentence. But Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner crashes into the sanctum, and they're just like, huh, there you are. Moving forward, Iron Man is kind of saying like, well, he's talking to his girlfriend, Pepper Potts, and telling him that, I don't want to be Iron Man anymore or something like that. That I'm really going to be a stay-at-home dad or something, and that I want to have a kid together. And then Doctor Strange opens up a portal, steps out, and says like, you need to come with me if you want to live, right? I mean, he doesn't really say that, but it kind of implies that you really need to come. And then Bruce Banner runs out and he's kind of convincing him. Anyway, we're moving forward. I'm just, skipping over all the humor because there's a lot of good character interaction here. But you probably want to see that in the movie in and within itself. I'm just like kind of giving you the plot and what I thought about it. Up until this point, I thought it was, amazing. It was really good. It was a bit fast paced. It definitely felt like they were cutting stuff. Especially character interaction because they needed to get everything in there in the movie. Because there were a lot of things in this movie. And something else I want to point out that happened when we get to the Scarlet Witch and Vision that apparently is in Scotland, in Edinburgh. They're having a bit of a love relation, and even though we're kind of supposed to assume that, yeah, this has been happening over the last couple of movies, we kind of saw it in Civil War, kind of saw it in Age of Ultron, I guess. They have some kind of connection there, but in the comics, it's a really strong connection. They even have kids at some point, even though it's, not real kids, it's symbiosis kids or whatever. Not symbiosis, not like Venom, but it's like artificial intelligent kids because, Vision is a robot, can't really have kids. Anyway. So you're supposed to assume that they have a romantic relationship, which I'm all down for, I realized that it's a 2.5 hour long movie with that many characters in it. And I kind of realized that, yeah, sure. You know what? I believe it. It's no big problem at all. I'm actually for this because generally when I see a trailer and I saw that piece of the trailer when they were in, I was like, oh, dude, we're going to spend 20 minutes on this and it's going to be super boring, going to take me out of the action. But no, that's not at all what happens. It's basically 5 minutes of them, having a bit of a love relation, and then they go out on the streets. Vision is about to go home or whatever. And then the other half of the Black Order attacks them. And it's the, what's it, approximate midnight, maybe, I think she's called. And it is Corvus Slave attacks them. Anyway, long story short, or rather short story even shorter, they kind of kick their ass with the help of Captain America, Black Widow, and Falcon who turns up. Something else that's kind of interesting to see is that this is the beginning of the movie style. I mean, we're still within the first 10 minutes. And we've already had reconnection with different characters that never met before. We've seen a lot of character interaction that we want to. We've seen a lot of action. And something that is important to keep in mind, or something that I was kind of thinking was kind of interesting to keep in mind, was that the quality of the fighting in the first 10 minutes of this movie could have easily been the end of another movie. And not plot-wise, obviously, but the way that it's presented and the way that, it's just so good and it's just so polished, or at least I thought it was. I've seen a lot of people complaining about the Black Order, that they're all CGI, that you can kind of see that, but for me, that wasn't really a big problem. I thought it was really good. I couldn't really see the difference between who was CGI and who was not, to be honest, right? I mean, you have some kind of rationale you're going in, you're like, that doesn't exist in reality, so I know that's CGI. But if there were people looking like, the Black Order, I would probably be like, these are just actors, right? Anyway, and so you have all of these things, and it's so well done, so it feels like this could have been the final act of a movie, but this is just the first 10 minutes of a 2.5 hour long movie. Yes, we're in for a treat! And this just continues on this theme. You get introduced to the Guardians, I think, next, which is really good. You understand why they're crashing in with Thor. They've gotten a distress signal from when the Asgardian ship was under attack, which makes total sense. Something else that's going to be a kind of a theme going through. It all makes sense, this movie. The movie just makes sense. See what I'm saying? It's just so good. It's always natural. It's always a reason for why something is happening. And I realize I'm giving out a lot of specific stuff from the movie, which is probably not the best thing. So I'm going to try and stop doing that and focus on specific key moments instead of just telling you the entire story, because I realize that might not be a review, right? That might be too much for a review, so to say, giving out the story. But anyway, this is still just first 10 minutes and you get introduced to the characters of the Guardian ship, and it's really well done. They have a really good dynamic showing how they work together. Then Thor is crashing into the windshield when they get there, and you get this entire interaction that you had in the trailer. You get some additional stuff, which is really interesting. You get Thor's reactions in relation to how it was portrayed in Thor Ragnarok, I'd say. I mean, there's a lot more of a comic relief Thor, even though you are with the Guardians, who is supposed to be, I assume, right, being the comic relief of the MCU, especially at this point, You really get a comical Thor that works really well with the comical Guardians of the Galaxy without taking away the seriousness of the movie, the sub context, let's say, the subplot. It's still there. You're still realizing that, wow, this is what's happening. I can totally see how this is a thing, let's say. I can still see the problem here and the seriousness and how all the characters are reacting, but still it's really funny. I think I was just standing up and laughing a couple of times in the theater. I mean, I didn't really literally do it, but I really wanted to do it, and I was kind of focusing on hindering myself from doing it because it was just so many funny moments. But anyway, moving on. So they're meeting them, and Thor is kind of like saying, I'm going off on my own adventure. That's where you see Rocket and him in the trailer when there's nobody else there with Edric, the dwarf. That is going to be really amazing, and really, I want you to see that for your own, because that was kind of when you have a stereotype and you have an eye-opening experience changing that stereotype. That's kind of what that entire subplot was about for me. It was one thing there when they're mentioning, we're going to meet this and this person, or we're going to do this and that. And you're just like, oh, this is what's going to happen. And then you see it and you're like, wow, this is not at all what I was expecting. And I know this is spoiler review, but still, I think that is one of those moments that's kind of a comic relief in a sense, or really comical, that you should see yourself. Otherwise, you just killing the entire scene, I'd say. Not the entire scene, still really good with the acting and stuff, but there are lots of stuff that's in there that's good. Anyway, we need to probably wrap up the beginning of this. I was just thinking about mentioning a few things that's happened for the first 5 minutes, but it's so memorable. It's so packed with all of these things. That's so interesting. But yeah, we're probably going to move on to some more critical stuff. This is just, the beginning of the movie. It wraps up really well. The ending is... whoo! I'd say I had lots of different interpretations of how they were going to go about ending this movie. I thought for sure that maybe he, obviously skipping the entire middle part of the movie, but I thought that, in the middle, you're kind of just playing on what you've already established in the beginning, and it's a lot of action. It's good. It's polished. Some people die. Some people are underrepresented. Some people are overrepresented, and so on and so forth. But yet again, I think that's probably something that we're naturally going to discuss, or it's something that you just can see because, it just works. I'm probably going to take out my favorite parts, humorous part of the movie, because I have it on my notes here. But more than that, I'm probably going to leave the humor for itself. But yeah, as we're moving on, the ending, I just want to discuss the ending briefly because I'm not sure if I want to spoil the ending, because even though this is a spoiler review, the ending it's an ending that's really powerful in a way. I mean, nobody laughed, nobody screamed, nobody said anything. It was just like the gasp of the room. It felt like all the air in the room or in the theater just went out when the movie ended, because that's how powerful it feels, and that is all based on that Thanos works so great. I mean, the character of Thanos, it just works so good. You have his entire motivation for it. You have his entire emotional spectrum. I mean, you can see more than just this big bad. It would be so easy to just write Thanos as the big bad in the movie, right? It would be so easy to say, this is this unstoppable guy. He's really powerful. Let's just make him powerful and mad, and let's the Avengers fight him. That would be a really good movie as well, probably. Or that would be a good movie. But given the way that they were handling this, it became a really good movie, because they're giving him different emotional situations. They're putting him into situations where he's forced to react the way he's supposed to react. Like, how is Thanos reacting in this environment? Why is he reacting like he does? And that really put a lot of power into the character, put a lot of power into the scene, really established who Thanos is and why is he behaving this way. Even though a lot of why was more about, his goal. His goal was kind of, this is what he's supposed to do, this is what he wants to do. Even though we probably would have liked, or I would have liked to see a bit more of, why is it that he got this goal to begin with, because that isn't really clear. And his goal is, a well-balanced universe. He wants to have, he wants to take away half of the life on every planet, half of life in the universe. And in the comics, that's because he wanted to impress Mr. Death. There's no real hint in the movie that that's the case here. But in the end, he snaps his fingers. He does it. He really does it. And it all just goes away after a really powerful scene with Thor. And Thor, oh my god! god, he looks so amazing in this movie. It's so inspired by Ultimate Thor. I would like to say it's Ultimate Thor, but wow, that costume is just... Without trying to spoil any of the comical things or the like big WTF moments in between the beginning and the end, but the way that Thor comes in the end, oh, I mean, you can say this, Thor is going to be on Earth, okay? Because this is spoiler review, right? So I can say that much. And when he is on Earth, he's going to come there, he's going to hit a couple of people, and then he jumps. And in that jump is going to be lighting. And in that lighting is going to show off his new costume with the energy going through his body and all and whatnot. And that scene, I've been thinking about that scene for a couple of days now. And that's probably the best thing I've seen in cinema history ever, as far as I know. When it's based on, CGI and everything. And just the moment building up to it. And it's so unexpected, but it's still so expected, because you know what the character can do. So it's not like, oh, wow, what happened here? It's more like, wow, it happened here, yes! Simultaneously, it's just beautiful, and it makes sense, and it's, all of these things just work together. It's really good. That's probably my favorite part in the entire movie. But yeah, so Thor has a strong presence in the end, I'd say. And it really pays off. It's really well done. I'm just going to say a couple of things from the beginning before we go into my notes otherwise. But the ending, awesome. Yeah, I'm all over the place. In the beginning, just the reason why I was talking about the beginning as particular and as in detail that I did, and I just remember I didn't mention it, was because there are some things in the ending that builds the movie. Because it's going to feel very rushed, okay? So that's all the things that's happening. It's happening pretty quickly. It's happening pretty fast. But that is happening because you need the rest of the movie to do what the rest of the movie does, okay? It's just a measurement of saying all of these things happens in 10 minutes, right? So that was my entire idea of telling you what was happening in the beginning, even though it was kind of walking you through step by step, but not step by step. I mean, I left a lot of things out, but the beginning is so good. Just a tip: if you're going to go and pee or whatever, if you're going to have an extra large Slurpee or something, don't. For the first, I'm going to say the entire movie, the entire 2 minutes and 36, 2 hours and 36 minutes, you don't want to leave. But if you do need to leave, don't leave within the first 40 minutes. I mean, there's so much going on and it's so good. Don't do it. Okay. Anyway, we're moving into the first, because this is the first spoilery review that I have, so I don't really know what to, push on and what to not push on. I don't even know if we can call it a review or more of a ramble about Infinity War with spoilers. Anyway, let's just move into some of my notes here. And the first note's going to be, this is the humorous part. This is the one scene I'm going to I'm not going to spoil exactly what happens, but I probably will. But I'm going to say there is a humorous moment that stands out above the rest, in my opinion, because it's so well executed. It's character motivations on both sides that's trying to make something really serious, and the character interaction works really well in a funny way, but it's still serious. I mean, it could have been a serious moment. It could have been villain against villain, or villain against hero, and it still would have worked. But what I'm talking about is that Tony and the gang, let's say, so him, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, is meeting up with the Guardians. And as I said, that's like two hero teams, and you see superhero teams, and you see it in the trailer. And if you're seeing this or listening to this, you've probably seen the trailers, right? I mean, they're more available than this is probably. So it's not that big of a spoiler that they're meeting up, but the way they're meeting up is so funny. Because as I said, they're meeting up and both have the goal of that they're chasing Thanos. And since they're all have masks on or whatever and whatnot, and they don't know each other, they think that since they're on Titan, the other people, the other team that's there is probably under Thanos' control. So both of them are talking about, you give it to Thanos, let's go to Thanos, and they're fighting, and it's a really good way of showing off the power levels between different characters that's on the same team by letting them fighting each other, thinking that it's a serious fight, and then playing it off into a comic, this comedic effect that, we're on the same side. While simultaneously, these effects or these character interactions that they do have, those would have still worked even if they were real villains. The one thing that stands out for me is that Drax is underneath Iron Man's cannon, and he just says, and somebody says, no, let him go, or I do this and that. And Drax is just like, no, don't do it. I can take it. I can take the blast. And Doctor Strange is just like, I don't think you can. And that was just, I mean, that's probably not the objectively best joke in the movie, but that one just got to me the most. I was laughing so hard. I actually got a stomachache after seeing that part of the movie. I was like, that was amazing. So that's probably the funniest scene in the entire movie, in my opinion, and the funniest line as well, because it works well. It is composed well, it's paced really well, gives a relevant power scaling. It's before a really serious moment, or what is going to be a serious moment, you know that. Yeah, it just works. What can I say, right? And the next thing is on my list there is Thor's new look. And we've already touched upon that, I see, because it's one of those things that I like a lot. I don't know what to say. I mean, I just love the way Thor looks now. Not necessarily after Ragnarok. I kind of dig the long blonde hair, but I totally see the appeal in the new Chris Hemsworth, right? I mean, it's Chris Hemsworth. You like him. I mean, who are you if you don't? I mean, even some of my parents are going to see the movie, and they're like, well, why are we going to see the Infinity War? You're not that big into superheroes. And my mom was like, well, Chris Hemsworth. And I'm like, I can see what you mean. I'm more of a Chris Pratt guy, but I can see what you mean. And all, yeah, talking about that, since we already mentioned Thor's new look, talking about Chris Pratt, it's a funny thing, really. I mean, of all the characters, when I see Thor, for instance, I'm thinking Thor. I'm not thinking Chris Hemsworth. Even when I see Robert Downey Jr., I'm thinking Iron Man. Even if I see Robert Downey Jr. somewhere else than the Marvel or Avengers movies. But when I see Chris Pratt, I don't see Star-Lord, and I don't see whatever he was named in Jurassic World. I see Chris Pratt, something kind of interesting. But what people have been spoiling all over the place, and what people have been talking about in all different comment sections everywhere, is that it's Star-Lord's fault. It's all Star-Lord's fault. And I can kind of see what people are coming from and what they're getting at. Because there is a scene when, well, it's kind of a really big spoiler, actually, why this is happening. I think I'm going to try and leave that out as well, because that's another amazing thing. You'll probably find it at any other YouTube channel out there. I would say it's even a bigger spoiler in a way than the ending with Thanos snapping his fingers and just wiping out half of the life in the universe. Because that was kind of, you could kind of see that. I thought they wouldn't go that ballsy and actually do it, but you can kind of see that was going to happen. But why Peter Quill is, the reason why Peter Quill is so angry at Thanos is kind of a big spoiler, because it involves a very heavy element of the movie, I'd say, and a very good Thanos moment as well, I might add. Probably the best Thanos movie, or Thanos moment actually in the entire movie, is built on that sequence, or that part of the arc, so to say, that he's on. But Peter Quill is really, really pissed at Thanos, and what it ends up happening is that they're trying to take the Infinity Gauntlet off Thanos on the planet, on planet Titan, and well, Peter Quill just loses it, and he doesn't go along with the plan, and that turns out to be the reason for why Thanos gets the upper hand, and then he just wipes them out. Not wipes them out, destroys them and kills them, but just he demolishes them. I mean, wow, they don't even stand a chance, really. I mean, it's not even a contest. If you were to say who would win here, and you'd see it from this perspective after Star-Lord has broken, after Chris Pratt has broken the plan, you would be totally like, Thanos. Because it's so clearly established what his power level is. So it's just like, you as the audience, you're just thinking, shit, here he comes. And that's further actually developed when Doctor Strange is looking into the future using the Eye of Agamotto, the time gem, or the Infinity Stone, the Time Stone, whatever you want to call it, right? It's synonyms. He's just saying, like, I just watched 14 something million different possible, alternatives of reality of the future. And Tony's like, oh, did we win in any of them? And he's like, yeah, in one. Which is kind of also a big issue with the movie, that people say that since they know that they're winning in one of the sequences, they're kind of saying that, oh, Doctor Strange is kind of pushing that idea, but whatever. But it's kind of cool that is happening. And I don't even know where I was going with this. I was just probably wanted to mention Cumberbatch in there somewhere. who's doing an amazing job again as Doctor Strange. Oh, also going to say, when I'm saying good job, Spider-Man, hands down, Tom Holland easily has the best part in the movie. I mean, I think that Thanos is the best character in the movie, and after that, everybody else comes second, because everybody has strong moments. But the best purely acting moment, that is easily Tom Holland's when he's supposed to die. Because when he wipes out the entire universe, right? When Thanos wipes out, sorry, not the entire one, but half of the life of the universe, they're killing off some big names. I mean, obviously the big three is there, but still he's killing off people like Doctor Strange, the Black Panther for some reason. I was like, wow, that's a cash cow that just went out the window. Holy shit. I mean, I understand that it's going to come back in some way because it's probably going to be a sequel on that movie because it was so successful. But wow, ballsy that they actually killed him off, since he's, you know, one of these more socially active heroes, let's say, in the real world. People are really happy about having a black hero in there who's actually really significant. And I'm all for that, you know, I don't see a problem with it. Wow, that sounded weird. Why would I see a problem in it? I mean, I'm supporting that, right? I don't even know what's worse. Saying that I'm supporting it, would that imply that I wouldn't, or that I assume that I don't? Anyway, that's a minefield we're not going to go into. But they're taking away big names like Black Panther, Doctor Strange. They're taking away Spider-Man, wiping out half of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And when they're doing that, Tom Holland just has this really great scene where he's saying that he don't want to die, that he's too young, and it's heartbreaking. I just sat there, I watched it, and I was like, I'm crying. I'm tears. This is so good. I'd say that he's easily up there with Thanos in the best spot of acting in this movie, in my opinion. You all have your own, obviously, but that's my take on it. And it was really good. Anyway, we're moving on to what was I going to say. He's demolishing them, blah, 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 on Titan. Then he goes to Earth, and he's kind of demolishing them there, too. I don't think that's kind of a spoiler. I mean, he gets the Infinity Gauntlet. So many people die. Vision died as well. Holy crap. It just hits me now that I'm kind of trying to debrief the entire movie. Whew. Anyway, let's move into to the next part. Thanos' motivation. I felt for him. Wow, solid note. Oh, yeah, I wrote it now. That's why it's so nicely phrased, or so creatively phrased, let's say. And what I can say about Thanos' motivation is that he has it's very heavy themes that are discussed in this movie, and one of the themes is death. And how do we deal with death? Do we trade lives? Do we negotiate with terrorists? Do we work on behalf of that we have an understanding of that we're trading lives? Do we not? And something that's really interesting is that Doctor Strange is saying, you know, he's establishing his take on this really early on, and then he does the opposite. It's just like, you know, I'm gonna trade. If it comes down to the stone and any of you guys, I'm definitely choosing the stone. And then that doesn't happen at all, which kind of says that, or rather, it's kind of contradictory, really, but it's probably because he's seen all these futures, so he kind of knows how they're going to win, so that's probably in accordance with that theory, or that reality that he saw. But it's so interesting that he says, you know, I'm not giving up life because the stone is too important. And then in the end, he ends up saving Tony Stark by giving up the time gem, which in turns wipes out half of the life in the galaxy, you know, millions, trillions, billions of lives. So it's like, well, wait, did he value life? I mean, sure, he saved a couple of people, but he simultaneously doomed so many. Yes, it's a bit of a question, but it's probably because he's seen the future and whatever and whatnot. Probably the running theory at the moment. But yeah, there's such a big theme around how do we value death and how do we value life even more, I'd say. Because that's kind of the perspective that I took. When I saw Thanos motivating his reasons for, I want to wipe out half of the life in the galaxy because life is running life is running amok, right? And what's beautiful with that motivation for a character and him portraying it in the way that he does, saying that, well, it's running amok, we don't have enough resources. Do you see this planet? I wiped out half of the, you know, life on this planet. You usually start, now you don't. Now it's a good planet, right? Nobody knows hunger anymore. The resources are going around, they're plenty enough. So the reason is, or rather the reason he takes up is that, is it okay to kill, or yeah, to kill half of the population Sorry, YouTube's new algorithm. What? To unalive? No, we're probably skipping that. Because if Disney can come out with a movie who says kill a lot and actually kill people, I think it's okay for me to say kill in a YouTube video, right? It should be. Especially discussing the movie where the word killing. It's probably a bit of a minefield there as well, to be honest, right? Political correctness and all of that. What? But what is so interesting with this motivation is that everybody has probably at some point been thinking about what Thanos is, you know, following in this movie. The goal he has, everybody's probably at some point thought that, you know, that's the solution to a lot of problems. And I felt that too. I was sitting there and I was like, he's arguably not even the villain. And when he succeeds in the end, I'm like, this is probably all in all a good thing. And that might be because I'm watching it from a, you know, an economist slash tech engineer point of view, and I'm like, you know, a logic is a big part of my reasoning, and I can really see how he's viewing the world, and it feels like he's really viewing it as an engineer. I mean, it would be like and I'm going to really generalize here, but if you put someone who's religious up towards someone who's applying a lot to logic, who's an atheist, and saying like, you don't have proof for this, and the religious person is saying, I don't need proof for this, I know it's right, I know it to be true. I'm saying that Thanos is kind of the engineer and the atheist in this part, in this view, simultaneously as he's the religious person, because he's saying that I apply to logic, this is the only reason. But when people are asking him why, he's like, because I know it to be right, which is so interesting. Because one of my critiques to the movie was that, well, it would be interesting if they took up this perspective that it's two sides watching this from different angles. They're kind of doing that. They're kind of taking up the opposition parts of how you should supposed to view life, but not really the religious versus the atheist point of view, which is probably, yet again, because it's kind of a minefield. But after reflecting on it, I think that Thanos holds both of those standpoints. He's both this fanatical person is going after this goal, but it's simultaneously a goal that's based in some form of logic anyway. It's some form of reason for why this is true. Mathematics, right? Mathematical. If you crunch numbers, this is the only solution. But of course, a normal person would probably not take that decision because it's not humane. But then the problem is he humane or not? Well, that's when they introduce that he's really humane with this really good thing and that really good theme that I ain't even gonna talk about because it's that good and you probably should see it, which is happening there, which really grounds his entire character, and you feel for him and you're like, wow, it was really serious before, wasn't it? And it's really beautifully done, and the motion capture and the visual effects, and Josh Whedon, what's his name? I need to check that out. Whoever it is, the guy who plays Thanos, it's just so good. Thanos actor. Let's see here. Oh yeah, Josh Brolin. Sorry, not just Whedon. Who am I talking about? Josh Brolin is doing the motion capture, and it really shines through, and it really brings the character to life in that moment. It's so brilliant. I mean, God, is it good or not? Anyway, that's just me fanning out of it all. But yet again, this idea, this theme, this thematic about what is life. I'm changing it from what is death to what is actually life. What is life worth? Because it's a big scene between Vision and Scarlet Witch as well, which is a bit about, that we're probably going to talk about later, that's what's life worth, or what is love worth, actually. And one can argue, isn't love the same as life in this equation? I mean, if you love someone, you want them to live, but simultaneously, do you? Huh? It's the big questions. Well, yeah, I think that's enough for my own personal kind of notes and my very rambling synopsis of the movie. Let's get into some critique that I've seen over the course of watching other people's reviews and discussing it with some friends. Oh, yeah. We're moving into it already. Okay, the first point of my critique list is, why did Scarlet Witch leave Vision? Or why did she not just kill him? And this is a bigger problem than I thought, actually. I mean, I've seen people saying that, you know, it's a bit weird that you had all of the lives in the balance, right? All of the people were hanging in the balance in the world, in the universe. And you could have avoided this by having Scarlet Witch, who they establish has a connection to the gems, which is why she can destroy them, because they need a power of equal magnitude or whatever it is to destroy it. And you can argue that why didn't she just destroy it to begin with? Why didn't she just destroy Vision? But that is because they have this love relation And she does end up doing it in the end, but Thanos is using the kind of the time gem to just reverse everything, which is so beautifully done. Because I'm honest with you, right? In that moment when she kills Vision, I was a bit disappointed because Thanos is so close and you can really see him slowing down, and I was like, wow, is this going to be one of those moments when he slows down intentionally because, you know, he knows he can fix it anyway? Or is this going to be one of those moments where the villain is overestimating themselves even though they haven't reached their goal yet, and that leads them to their demise? Because that would be really bad in my opinion. But it just turns out he goes there, reverse time, and, you know, everything works out. But he gets all the stones. Anyway, so the problem is that why didn't Vision just kill him off earlier in the movie? Because she does have a lot of time before Thanos comes. Even after the Black Orders come, even though she knows about this, she still doesn't kill him. And I'd say that's because of the love between those characters, the interaction. That's to show the interaction between those two characters, which I thought was really nice, because it's not easy killing a loved one, right? I mean, nobody in the right mind could do that. Probably no matter what was hanging in the balance, not even if it was another loved one in the balance, because you're just not programmed, right? Your biology just says, no, don't do that. That's wrong on all the levels, right? You could probably and should probably sacrifice everything else before you do this. What are you doing? So it kind of makes sense in my way that they don't do it. And then when she does end up doing it, I'd say it's a so much more powerful moment when it ends up happening. That she's overcoming this. She's seeing the love for him, but still the problem and the catastrophe that awaits. And in the last moment, she reaches us and does it because she cannot do it before. Because that's when the balance is tipped in the scale of killing Vision. Which I thought was really amazing. So I thought that was nicely done. But what people are saying yet again is that, well, you know, it's just to drag out the movie. But yet again, I would disagree because of the reasons that I just stated. Another thing is that she leaves Vision because she's kind of standing with Vision the entire time, kind of defending him from anyone who would try to come and take him away, because they're trying to operate out the Mind Stone from his forehead, which I for sure thought they were going to succeed with. I mean, I was totally on board. I almost thought that I was spoiled when someone came up with a theory, and I was like, oh yeah, obviously they're going to do that. That didn't happen. So it turns out that the Scarlet Witch is watching everybody else that she cares for is fighting on the battlefield, which yet again pits these two things against each other, that there's loved ones on both stakes. But on the one hand, she can do something on the battlefield, and she's one of the strongest Avengers out there, right? So she should probably be there. Whilst, Vision, she cannot do anything, and there is guards. So she ends up going into the battlefield, which again I thought made perfect sense. And it turns out that if she hadn't done that, then I would love to see Approximate Midnight, if that is the right one. You know, the girl with the pole arm, which I didn't think was a girl, but that matters less, right? Not that it's bad that she was or that she wasn't, or that I thought, or that I didn't think. It was just that I thought she had kind of a neutral kind of character design. I know she's supposed to, I think, be having something with the Ebony Maw, or sorry, not the Ebony Maw, but Corvus Glaive. But I just thought, oh, they made her a dude. Sure. And then it turns out, oh no, you're a woman, because oh, that's so bad, by the way. That's actually a critique I have. It always kind of feels like the girl, like the woman villain, the female women, that's how you say it. The female villain is fighting the female heroes, and the male hero is fighting the male villain. And I was like, I don't know if this is good in the eyes of political correctness. I don't know if this is bad in the eyes of political correctness, but to me, it looks really segregated. That is probably intentional, right? But I don't know. I would have loved to see a bit more of a change in the sexes when they were fighting. That's just a minor complaint. I mean, that's really when you're getting down to the nitty-gritty of it. Anyway, we're talking about Vision and Scarlet Witch. So Scarlet Witch flies out there and she helps them. Helps Black Widow and the girl from Black Panther, which I don't know the name of because I haven't seen the movie. Which is also the reason for why I disliked a lot of those characters. Not dislike, but you know, you generalize, right? When you watch a movie, you see people who are really good and you compare the other people in the movie with that person who's really good, and that gives them a really unfavorable comparison, because obviously some characters are written to look better, but just the acting overall is made to look weirder. So those, I think that the Black Panther characters, for me, since I haven't seen the backstory to those yet, were the weakest ones, in my opinion. They were still really good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought they were amazing. It's just that in comparison to the other ones, they weren't that mind-blowingly mind-blowing. They were just, regular mind-blowing. Anyway, so I think that Scarlet Witch was kind of standing in this struggle that, oh, here are loved ones I care about. I can actually make a difference. I should go down there, in comparison to, here's Vision, I can't do anything. So that's why I think she left him. But then she comes in and saves the day anyway. So yeah, props to the Scarlet Witch and props to the Russo brothers for actually directing this movie and giving everybody these kind of small moments that matters a lot. I mean, it feels like all the characters have moments where they're making a really big impact, but it just takes like half a minute for them to present this and for you to kind of understand it. I mean, you probably need to think about it for a while, right? But the second time you watch it, you're definitely going to feel like, oh, obviously, this is the moment when they're thinking about this. And I'm just like, wow. Not that I've seen it the second time, though, but I've heard people have said it. I've seen people have said it, and, so on and so forth. And I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this movie. So it's kind of like I've seen it for the second time because I've spent so much time on this movie in my head. Just going to remove my... my shirt. There we go. Taking you guys all out of the immersion that I'm actually another person on the other side here of the screen, right? I know, breaking it all. Moving on to the next bit of critique then. Why did they make Star-Lord hit Thanos? Oh yeah, that's what's supposed to establish his... I've actually changed my mind. I changed my mind on that. I'm not going to discuss that. That's probably the strongest part of the movie, I'd say, because you bring out Thanos' strongest piece, and you bring out no, it's not, but it's because of that it later leads on that it gets the Infinity Gauntlet, which leads into the rest of the movie, and you get Tom Holland's great performance. So I'm not actually going to say that. That one. We're skipping on to the next one. Thanos not strong enough. And this is hilarious. Actually, because when I did my spoiler-free review, I remember I was saying, oh, it's so good that they made Thanos actually worthwhile, because it would be so easy to make him the big bad that didn't have a personality and was really strong. But what they did was that they made him with a personality and still really strong, because I thought if they give him a personality, maybe they're going to show some personal weakness and personal flaws in his character, and that is going to make him be less physically intimidating. But no. Not in my opinion. But I've heard lots of people saying that, he should have shit on the Avengers more than he did right now. He should have just smacked them around even harder, even more, right? More than he actually did. And where I think that a lot of this critique is coming from is the idea that in the comics, imagine the full power of the MCU, right? Going up against Thanos. They're doing equally as good, I'd say, based on what I've seen, right? And what I've read, as all of the Marvel heroes, all of the Earth's superheroes in Marvel Comics, and the space-based heroes and the cosmic entities and stuff like that are against Thanos in the comic books. So for instance, let me paint you a picture. In the MCU, I think that they did as good of a representation as they could in relation to the comics with what they have and what they've established within the MCU. I totally say that's true. I'm behind that statement too, 100%. Because I thought that they made him equally as good or equally as powerful as he seems to be in comics, just that it's with fewer characters. Because, yeah, you're having Iron Man, you're having the entire Guardians of the Galaxy, you're having Scarlet Witch, you're having the Secret Avengers, that's being, Black Widow, Captain America, and Bucky Barnes, and then you have Black Panther, and then you have Falcon, and you have Rhodey, who is, War Machine. You have all of the MCU heroes, right? Which is like, what, 25 heroes, right? So let's say 30, 35, just to be, just to be generous, minus Ant-Man and the Wasp, and minus taking out as well Hawkeye and Nick Fury. But otherwise they have that, and they have the full might of Wakanda, right? And they're attacking Thanos, and I'd say they're doing a pretty good job. Pitting that against what people who have read the comics evaluate Thanos' power to be is that they are doing an equally as good job, I'd say, as all of those heroes, plus the X-Men, plus the Fantastic Four, plus, Galactus, plus the Silver Surfer, plus Adam Warlock, plus the Celestials, Anyway, you know who I mean, the celestial beings. Yeah, that's what's right. Anyway, the Celestials. I'm out. The celestial beings. Oh, damn, I should have quit the first time. But you know, it's all of these different heroes from the Marvel comic book universe that goes up against Thanos, and they're kind of standing on the, they're kind of doing the exact same, they're kind of making the same damage as the MCU characters are. And that is because, well, if Thanos was as powerful as he was in the comics, based on, you know, as many people he's fighting off at the same time there, well, he would, it wouldn't have been a movie. It would have been like a 5-minute movie. It would be all the Avengers making kind of a, you know, kind of making a defensive line like in football, like in American football, and then have Thanos walk through them. Because he would have been so immensely powerful, even without the Infinity Gauntlet, that, yeah, it would just walk right over them, straight over. Oh, yeah, actually, something that I would like to take up as well with the second point that I was going to take up. Star-Lord and all of that. That it's his fault. His fault is basically boiling down to that he's losing control and he's not following in accordance with the plan. And that makes it so that Thanos, that they don't get the Infinity Gauntlet off Thanos' hand. Now, something that I would like to point out with that is that they would still be on the same planet as Thanos, and Thanos would still be widely powerful. And what it looks like, based on the MCU, right? As far as we know, as far as we've seen, it doesn't seem like the, you know, glove is actually scaling down to anyone who uses it. I think it does that in the comics, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's scaling down in the MCU, so nobody could have used these stones to actually fight Thanos. Sure, they probably could have taken them out, maybe. We've just seen them get attached really hard to the gauntlet, so we don't know. So that would have just been that if they got it off, having Thanos chase them around until he got the, you know, Infinity Gauntlet back, and then the story would have progressed as it would. So I don't think it's that big of a problem. And I think that having Star-Lord breaking the plan, making it so that Thanos never lost the Infinity Gauntlet in the first one, made it so that you think Star-Lord is kind of a shitty character, right? I mean, that was kind of a flaw in his character, where he elsewhere is flawless, except for perhaps his self-esteem, but that's used very well. And his leadership skills. And his verbal skills, no, but all in good fun. But otherwise, if they hadn't had done that, it would just be like Thanos losing the Infinity Gauntlet, chasing them down, getting it back, and then it would be like, instead of blaming Star-Lord for it and thinking that the rest of the Avengers could have succeeded, it would basically have been like, wow, there's no hope. Why are we even going to watch the next movie? Because what that moment did was kind of saying that, oh, there is a hope that we can actually get this thing off. There is a hope that we can actually beat him. But that was when he still had, what, 2 or 3? 2, I think, Space Stones? Or the Space Stone and the Power Stone. Yeah, so when he only had 2 Infinity Gems. So that's obviously going to change later on when he has all 6 of them. So, but still, it made that feel that people in the theater had hope in the heroes. Where elsewhere, if they got it off, it would just be like, wow, Thanos ran around and smashed them, even though they got it off. How are they going to fix this in the future when even if they get this off, he's still going to kick their ass? That's where Captain Marvel is probably going to come in. Anyway. Yeah, so that's why I think that was bad critique as well. I think that it was executed really well the way it was done, and I think that it was the best course of action. Anyway, going back to Thanos then, yeah, I thought that they represented Thanos in a really good way, show that he was strong simultaneously as he wasn't as powerful in the comics, because if he was, it wouldn't have been a movie. It would just have been Thanos walking in, killing everybody, and walking out, or killing half of everybody. Because he would have been, or he is actually, strong enough to selectively kill everybody or kill half of everyone if he wanted to. Even without the Infinity Gauntlet, he could probably just have walked around and been like, you can die, I'm gonna let you survive, so you can hit me in the meanwhile that I'm trying to kill this other person, because it ain't even gonna matter, right? So that was kind of funny, actually, or kind of interesting. So that's why I think that they took that directive or that creative choice as they did. Moving on to the next point, which is going to be the end of this, because believe me, I can talk about this for hours upon hours upon hours on end. I could probably make a stream, an entire week stream, just talking about Infinity War, as long as I have someone, you know, who is going to be the back and forth with, having someone to interact with, let's say, with the comment section or something like that, that's live, or someone else is sitting here, because damn do I love talking about the Infinity War and different theories and stuff like that. But that's exactly what we're going to do now, but with some established ones that I have right here. So we're going to move on. What can happen from how it ended? I know that a lot of people are thinking, or I didn't think it actually, and I've seen, and when I'm saying a lot, I mean two. I've heard one guy who I saw the movie with, who said this, and I was like, that's really smart. I didn't even consider that. And then you have some other people on YouTube who's also said like, oh, just remember that this is a thing. And that is kind of connected with Thanos' big moment. But that is the Soul Stone. And that Soul Stone theory in the future. And that is that basically when he whips out the half of life in the universe, you get this idea, this sense that people are disintegrated into, I don't know, it looks like kind of mud or something. I guess that they decompose. But in a nice way in comparison to the Walking Dead way, right? Not naturally, I'd say. I would have personally liked something like a blue visual effect to symbolize the good of the soul or something. But, you know, who cares? Anyway. Wow, it's a nitpick. Anyway, when that happens, he is turned around. The guy who sat with it, he was like, don't you think that all of those people who died are in the Soul Stone, in the gauntlet? Because the gauntlet gets kind of crushed when you use it. Which is pretty interesting. So the gauntlet gets crushed when he snaps his fingers, which, as far as I know, don't happen in the comics. Which made him feel like maybe that's because it's absorbing all of these souls in the galaxy, and maybe that is why it crumbled. Maybe he's going to fix it for the second movie, and then potentially trade all of those souls for something else that happened in the movie. That's a theory as well, and I've heard some people backing that up. Personally, I think that's plausible. Because we saw that Doctor Strange saw into the future, and that was the only way of winning. That's why he's kind of giving up the, presumingly, right? That's why he's giving up the stone as well. So maybe it was that by giving Thanos the stone, he can assemble the Infinity Gauntlet, kill half of life in the universe, or not really kill, just decrease them into nothingness, and get all of their souls into the Soul Stone, realize his mistake, and take it all back. And for that, he needed all of the 6 stones, which is why Doctor Strange gave it to him. But he still needed to pose a challenge, because they didn't just want to give it to Thanos, because then Thanos would be suspicious about it, and he wouldn't have had the epiphany that it's going to be having in the 4th Avengers movie. Maybe that'd be true. I thought it was kind of interesting. I'm behind that. If they do that, I would be like, yeah, sure, fine. Why not? I like it. Personally, right? Some other things that, what should we say, theories about it is that Adam Warlock isn't in the movie. And I've seen a lot of people saying that, how can Adam Warlock and the Silver Surfer not be in the movie? Because when they're trying to take off Thanos' gauntlet, that's kind of the work of the Silver Surfer in the comics. They kind of just throwing in all of the, Earth's superheroes to be, I don't know how you say it in English, fodder. You know, the thing that horses eat and I don't know, farm animals eat. They're kind of trying to make them be kind of food for Thanos, while they're trying to be able to distract him so that Silver Surfer can get in and shove the gauntlet off him. That turns out to not working, which is also probably a way of saying that, representing it with Peter Quill losing his temper and not going with the plan. Showing that they almost did it, but it didn't work. Wow. So many ways of explaining that scene that people are disliking. But, you know, that's just a way of breaking it down. Finding parallels and reasons for why it happened. Anyway, so the problem with not having Adam Warlock in the movie, and he's not said to be appearing in the movie, appearing in any of the movies until Guardians of the Galaxy 3. However, I think the same director said that Captain Marvel wasn't going to be in any of the Infinity War movies, or whatever the next one is going to be called, probably Gauntlet, right? Or something like that. But, well, she is, because there's a post-credit scene kind of tying that in, and people kind of confirming that since that. The Russo brothers have said, like, yeah, we've got many good, strong female characters, like Captain Marvel, for instance, in the next movie, and you're just like, huh, so she is in the movie. That means that Adam Warlock might be in the movie. But if he isn't in the movie, the problem is that he's kind of the guy who leads all of the superheroes in the quest, or in the war towards Thanos, towards fixing everything. And that's probably going to be Captain America in the MCU is going to take up that mantle and do that, because he didn't get that much screen time in this movie, which is probably because he's going to get a lot of screen time in the next movie, leading the Avengers and the Earth's superheroes and the galaxy's superheroes against Thanos. Something else that I saw a while back, which is probably not so much a theory as it might have been an April Fool's joke or something like that, but that was that the Silver Surfer was listed at IMDb or somewhere else like that to be a cast for the next Infinity or for the next Avengers movie, Avengers 4. And this would bring in the interesting question that the Fox deal is going through this summer, presumably, right? And people are saying that, Avengers 4 is they already wrapped that movie. If it's going to be in there, it's probably going to just be a post-credit scene. But what if they've been talking to Fox for a very long time and have the Silver Surfer and Galactus shared as they did with Spider-Man before the deal came through, and that being the reason for the deal? Now, wouldn't that just be the coolest thing? Imagine the Silver Surfer and Galactus being the two pieces that tips the scale in favor of the Avengers against Thanos in the 4th movie. And then them having to kind of, I don't know, deal with this issue in a creative way. Or it ends in a... Yes! This is how we end it. Okay, so we're saying that this is the thing that's going to happen. Wow, he's got fired up for for a mysterious reason, right? But imagine this, right? Galactus is coming in with Silver Surfer, his, the Herald of Galactus or whatever it's called, wielding the power cosmos. With their help, they're defeating Thanos. It's all good, it's all fine, it's all dandy, right? And then in the post-credit scene, the way that makes the Avengers not having to deal with Galactus is that the Fantastic Bloody Four is coming in and they are dealing with Galactus. And they're giving sort of a monologue that, oh, we've been dealing with him for a long time or something like that. And then the next movie, or the first movie rather in the MCU with the Fantastic Four, is them dealing with Galactus or something like that, or the prelude to them dealing with Galactus, and then the second movie with them is them dealing with Galactus, and then that ends up and ties up with Avengers 4 end credit scene, and then after that they will be put into an Avengers movie and fight the real Skree invasion, or the real Skrull invasion, or whatever it was, or the war between the two races, which is probably going to be either teased or entirely used. Don't think it's going to be entirely used because it's a huge comic book story, right? In the Captain Marvel movie. But that's also something that would be kind of interesting to see those characters, because there's lots of characters that they could potentially use now that they have Fox. But yet again, they wrapped it, so probably not going to happen. I also saw some theories around that if Thanos or someone reestablishes half of the life of the universe, that would be a reason, right? That would be a good reason for the Russo brothers, or for Kevin Feige, or for Marvel in general, to introduce the X-Men. And just bear with me here, right? Imagine that you have the power to wipe out half of the life of the universe, and you have the Reality Stone, and when you get everything back to normal, something kind of goes wrong. There is, some small tidbits. They can use that to retcon stuff. They can use that to rewrite. Retcon, actually, that's the same thing. Rewrite is trying to say. But they can also use that to further the plot and say that, wow, part of the humans who came back now have superpowers and are now mutants. And that would be a nice segue and a nice way to just introduce mutants in the MCU and be like, now you get the X-Men. Here you go. I just introduced it in modern time, because otherwise you can kind of do a prelude to them. They've been, I think that Comics Explained did a really good video about this, the implementation of both the Fantastic Four and the X-Men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I highly recommend you go check out. But imagine, but that wasn't part of, I don't think that this theory was part of that, but imagine him snapping his fingers and people come back. Something small went wrong. They're now mutants on Earth. That would be such an easy way to explain it as well in the first X-Men movie. Just showing the end of, Avengers 4, or in the middle or whatever, when everybody is deemed to come back. Because, there is a Spider-Man 2 in the making, so you kind of need to come back. And there is the Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Sure, they can, yet again, change up the roster. It might just be Rocket Raccoon and Thor. Could be the case. Probably isn't, but could be the case, right? Anyway, that's probably the theories that I had and some of the points that I have. And yet again, I could talk for this for weeks. I'm probably just going to end up with giving this kind of a rating, what I thought about it, and just talk about some of the performances again that I have done a lot. I know. But Movie overall gets a solid 9.5, 9.8 out of 10 for me. I've always said like 11 out of 10, always. Over the last 72 hours since I saw the movie or something like that, whatever it is, 48 maybe, I've said like 12 out of 10, 11 out of 10, 110 out of 100, right? All of those good scores. But as the more I think about it, there is two cuts or one cut in the movie which I don't like, in the fight between Wakanda and when you're in Thor's story, where they are talking about, or where they're cutting between the two. And the problem is that they're both really good and you both want to fulfill, you want to see both of them, but they cut them kind of awkwardly one time. The second time they cut it awkwardly, but that is explained within like, what, 20 seconds why that happened. They're just like, pay off, I understand. But the first time I'd say it's like, this was kind of bad. Maybe they did it bad the first time intentionally so that you wouldn't think about it the second time, so that it would be an even bigger payoff when it happens, which you will see, because that's the greatest part in the movie. So if you know what I thought was the greatest part in the movie, even though I probably said that a couple of times now, you can probably piece together what I'm talking about given the context and time frame of the movie. Otherwise, yeah, moving on. But the 9.8 out of 10, I'd say, and that is based on some cutting, some CGI at places, not at all a lot. I mean, like of the entire movie, like 10 seconds maybe of wacky CGI, from my opinion or from my standpoint. What more can I say? Well, otherwise it comes down to complete bias, which is why I have decreased it. It's like, oh, I want to see more of this person or less of that person, but I get that all of them would need to get a lot of enough screen time to actually make sense that they're in the movie or justify where they're in the movie to begin with. So that all works. Given the context of the movie, it's a 10 out of 10, I'd say. But given just me watching it, it's a 9.8 out of 10. Between 9.5 and to 9.8 out of 10, depending on how much I let my bias kind of interact with it all. Otherwise, acting, Josh Brolin. Yeah, I think we checked it out, right? I did check it out. Anyway, the guy who does Thanos, easily top one. After that, I mean, of the entire story. After that, if I have to pick a female character, let's say this. Perfect, best CGI character, Thanos. Best villain, of course, Thanos is the best villain of the entire MCU. Probably of a lot of other movies as well included. I've watched in a very long time. He's so relatable, and you kind of see him, you understand, you clearly understand he's the villain. Not just because he's depicted as the villain, just because, you know, his motivation is villainous. But they're so nicely done that you feel at times that he's the hero, which makes him such a good villain. And it's really relatable as well. Anyway, that together with performance, he's just, you know, Thanos all the way. It's a Thanos movie. It's great. Best female part, I'd probably say it goes to Gamora. I know that some people that I talked to said like, it's just the context in where she's in. It's not actually the acting. But I say that was intentionally a bit... She's having a bit of a time when she interacts with Thanos, where she's kind of laughing or kind of happy. But it's more, I'm seeing that more as all of these different emotions coming out at the same time, and that really being reflected by the actress. So I think that was an amazing job. And if that was the case, then I imagine that would be one of the hardest things ever. I mean, just imagine having the director coming at you and saying like, hey, so what I want you to do in this, what I want to do in this scene is... display all the emotions simultaneously, but with a pinch more happiness, right? Because you're supposed to be happy. And the actor's just being like, what? And I think that was how I interpreted that scene, and you will understand what I mean when you see it, because it only happens like once. And otherwise she is a lot of good scenes actually. Yeah, I'd say that Gamora's scenes, she's the best actress in the movie. The best non-CGI guy or whatever is Tom Holland for me, of the male characters. I would probably say the guy who played Black Panther, if I exclude the one scene in the end with Spider-Man, with Tom Holland, because that scene just sold it for me so good, so well. I mean, I had tears when he died. I mean, he does it in such a relatable way as well. He's supposed to be this young character. He's kind of the surrogate of the... I've heard this term before. Actually, it's not my coined phrase, but he's the surrogate of the of the audience, let's say. He's the person who's reacting on behalf of the audience in the Marvel movie, right? Or in the movie. And when he realizes that he's actually dying and that this is actually serious, it's just so heartbreaking to see someone who's that happy and, you know, so hopeful just gets completely demolished by reality. And it's really one of those moments when you think like, or I thought, rather, I'm not going to generalize too much here because it might sound really, really depressing. But I was just thinking, yeah, that's a kid meeting adulthood. Not, you know, puberty, but proper realizing I'm an adult, life getting fast, you're getting old, you're really old, you're about to die. And you're just like, all of those feelings I saw on top. I got all of that from Tom Holland's performance. Him going through his entire life up until the end and realizing that, wait, I just went through my entire life flashing before my eyes, but I'm 22. Shit. And that reaction, that's how I took his reaction, which was so nicely done by him, especially since he's not as experienced. I don't know, of course, but given his age and how often he's occurred in these kind of big movies, or the movies I've seen, I think he's in a movie with Chris Hemsworth as well. I don't know what it's called. It's kind of inspiration to Moby Dick, The Great Sea or The Great Whale or something. Where he's also good, by the way. He's good in all the movies, but he has less experience in comparison to some of the adult stars that are there, right? I mean, that's just the virtue of his age, right? But what he has, he uses it so well. I mean, if I were in charge of the Oscars, right, I'd give it to him right away for that scene alone. If there is an Oscar for best heartbreaking scene that makes you sad, even though it was 2 or 3 days ago I saw the movie, I still want to lay down in a ball, crawl into a ball and cry on the floor. Not because all of the Avengers, half of the Avengers got wiped out, just because that one emotional scene. Anyway, so he was easily the best, including that. Otherwise, I like T'Challa, I like Black Panther, I like the dude. I mean, that accent, what? I can't even do it. The accent, give this man a shield. Raise our defenses and give this man a shield. Oh, I can't even imagine that that's not his real accent. I was so amazed. I was so surprised when I saw it in an interview and he was just, you know, talking like any other dude. And I was like, wait a minute. You made that accent up? It's brilliant. It's gold. I love that accent. Anyway, so he's like my honorable mention. But yeah, that's kind of my take on the movie. That's my take on the actors and all the actors in the movie. The pacing, as I said, really good. You really understand why every single second of the movie is in there. And I can't wait for the Blu-ray. I mean, the extended version. Oh, all of the cutout scenes, because I can imagine that the scenes that have been cut out aren't going to be decreased in quality at all, because they're probably going to be really good. You know, not heavily focused on CGI, not more on like idiot, but more on more on the things that, you know, just character interactions, people talking to each other, which to me it's gold, because I would really love to see that. So that's gonna be cool. That's, you know, hyped for that as well. Or I can't even wait. So yeah, sorry, that was everything for me today, mates. Next one for next month, even though let's see how this is getting received, because I have lots of different business topics and different psychological controversies or observations that I made that I kind of want to talk about in a podcasty type as well. Might be that I'm doing more than one. Might be that I'm just, you know, keeping this because, you know, I wanted to have topics for each and every month. Because that can be hard at times. But otherwise, Deadpool 2 comes out next month. So if this is well received, then, or rather, if this isn't badly received, I'd say, I'm probably going to do a full-on spoilery looking through Deadpool 2 review as well, because I really enjoy this. This was something really amazing. Usually I'm just talking to some close friends and my brother about these things on hours and hours and hours and hours and hours upon end, upon multiple days, you know, across multiple days, sometimes even across multiple weeks, even if I'm just reiterating the same points over and over and over and over and over again, which I probably tended to do during this review as well. So yeah, that's just the nature of things, but I have no problem with doing this. So as I said in the beginning, I think if there's anybody out there who wants to listen to this, I really want to talk about it. I really enjoy this, yeah. It's kind of taking my hobby of listening to other people on YouTube and reading others' theories and then just putting it all together and giving my own personal point of view and yeah, just getting in there and doing it myself. So yeah, that was amazing. But yeah, that's enough rambling for me. 9.8 out of 10. Amazing performance by everyone. Thanos movie, Holland's Gamora. Have a nice one, mates. See ya.